Ahoy! My name is Kurt and I've got a fresh installment of my Pokéball crafting series for you today. In this video I'm tackling the Premier Ball and Heavy Ball. As you can see, I've already cut out the foam elements for the inside of the halves and dremeled, sanded, cleaned and spray painted the two parts of the ball with white paint. To better follow along with the crafting process, I recommend checking out my Pokéball prototype video. I go into detail about each step and every material there. You can find the link in the video description. Moving on to the Premier Ball. I've once again used superglue to attach the foam elements inside the Pokéball. Take your time here and work carefully to prevent the foam from warping. The halves of the Premier Ball are all set, so let's focus on the inside. I've reused a plastic Christmas ornament for this purpose. I removed the screw cap, sanded the surface with a sanding sponge and then glued red 2mm thick foam onto the wall. And if you want to support me and my channel, I would be thrilled if you consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up if you enjoy what I'm doing. Thanks a bunch for your support. And let's go back to the Pokéball. As I mentioned earlier, I attached 2mm thick foam to the ball and painted it with red acrylic paint, giving it a more premium appearance, at least in my opinion. For the button, I used a furniture slider, a magnet and a small rubber ring. I also used superglue to attach the magnet and the rubber ring to the furniture slider. And after letting it dry, I gave the surface a new coat of silver paint. With all the parts prepared, I could start assembling the Pokéball. I first glued the button into the center of the Pokéball, then, using a plastic arrow as a spacer, I roughly aligned the halves in the middle, ensuring even spacing. Afterward, I connected everything with superglue. Adding some wear and tear gives that realistic touch, so I intentionally made the Pokéball look a bit damaged and dirty. So I applied black acrylic paint, scraped the surface and removed some material here and there. With my silver marker from earlier, I highlighted the edges and corners to mimic metal peeking through the paint. I sealed the red core of the Premier Ball with acrylic varnish for a shiny effect, and I used a red metallic pen to paint the rubber ring in the middle of the Pokéball. And there you have it, the Premier Ball is done. Now on to the Heavy Ball. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to find good apricorns this time of year. I'm glad that I found these three in my basement, but they are a few years old by now. They hold up quite well though. For the Heavy Ball, we need an apricorn black, so I cut the fruit in half, magically transforming the apricorn into two halves of an acrylic ball. I treated both halves with the standard procedure again, you know, the whole glue 2mm thick foam with super glue on the inside routine. Again I used my trusty plastic Christmas ornament. The steps here aren't much different from the Premier Ball or any other ball I've crafted before, but I briefly walk you through the process anyway. The button consists of the same elements as before. I painted it with silver paint and attached it to the core of the Heavy Ball. I roughly aligned the halves again using my arrow as a guide to position them before gluing them in place. And note to self, wear gloves when handling super glue. For those blue knobs on the top, I used fridge magnets. I removed the magnets inside and used my soldering iron to clear out the plastic, making room for foam, which I attached with hot glue. This gave me enough surface area to attach the knobs to the ball. I taped them with painter's tape to determine their position. Then I made fine markings and finally glued them in place with superglue. Of course, I added wear and tear to the heavy ball too. I applied acrylic paint, scratched the surface and painted the edges and corners. I coated the core of the ball with acrylic varnish, and that wrapped up the heavy ball. Here are both Pokeballs in a nice studio lighting. Thanks a bunch for tuning in and sticking around till the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. In the next one, we will craft the Love Ball and Quick Ball. I'd love to have you join me again. Until then, happy crafting.